Welcome to the story of the Little Match Girl. On a cold New Year's Eve, a little girl wanders through the falling snow, holding a box of matches in her hand. As she lights each match, wondrous visions appear before her eyes. Will the girl's wish come true? Join us in this touching story, where the magic of love and hope shines bright in the winter night. Bitter cold, snow falling, darkness had settled in. Tonight was New Year's Eve. In the freezing winter night, a little girl with no hat and barefoot was wandering alone. She had worn cloth shoes when she left home, but what good were they? The shoes had belonged to her mother. They were too big, and she lost them when she ran across the street as two carriages galloped by. The first shoe was crushed by a horse-drawn carriage, buried in the snow and lost forever. The second was picked up by a boy who laughed and threw it high into the air. He teased her, saying he would keep it to use as a cradle for his puppy. So she had to walk barefoot, her little feet turning red and then blue from the cold. In her old apron she carried matches, and in her hand she held one bundle. She tried to find a spot where people might pass by. But it was so cold, and everyone hurried on, paying no attention to her. All day long she hadn't sold a single match, nor received even a penny. The poor little girl, cold and hungry, continued to wander the streets. The windows of every house shone brightly with light, and the aroma of roasted goose filled the street. It was New Year's Eve after all. She remembered the times when her kind grandmother was still alive, and she too had celebrated New Year's at home. But death had taken her grandmother away. The family had lost everything, and they had been forced to leave the cozy home surrounded by ivy, where she once lived happily, to now live in a dark corner, constantly hearing scolding and harsh words. She nestled into a corner between two buildings, tucking her feet under her, but she felt colder and colder. However, she dared not go home without selling a single bundle of matches or receiving even a single coin. Her father would surely beat her. Besides, it was cold at home as well. They lived in an attic under the roof, and even though they had stuffed rags in the cracks, the wind still whistled through. By now her hands were stiff with cold. Oh, if only she could strike one of the matches to warm herself just a little, if she could just pull one out and strike it against the wall. When she could no longer bear the cold, the little girl took out a match and gently struck it. In the small glow of the match, she imagined a great, warm fireplace. The fire crackled joyfully, spreading its gentle warmth. How wonderful! She stretched her hands out towards the flame. But then the light flickered out, and the fireplace vanished. She sat there, holding the burnt-out match. Her body shivered as she realized that her father had sent her out to sell matches. She would be scolded if she returned home tonight without selling any. She lit a second match, and this time it burned brightly. She saw a lavish banquet table covered with delicious food. With joy, she thought, if only I could taste these dishes. But the most magical thing was the roast goose on the platter, carrying both a knife and a fork stuck in its back, making its way towards the little girl. But then the match went out, and all she could see were the cold, dark walls around her. She struck a third match, and the vision of her beloved grandmother appeared before her. Her grandmother, who had loved and protected her when she was alive. She lit another match against the wall, and a soft blue light surrounded her. She clearly saw her grandmother smiling at her. "Grandmother," she cried out, "take me with you. I know when this match goes out, you will disappear too. But please don't leave me here. When you were still with me, we were so happy. You once told me that if I were good, I would see you again. Oh, grandmother, please ask God to take me with you. I know he won't refuse." So she lit all the remaining matches in the bundle. She wanted to hold on to her grandmother. The matches flared brightly, as bright as daylight. Never had she seen her grandmother so tall and beautiful. Her grandmother took her hand, and together they soared high, far away from the cold world, to a place where there was no more hunger, cold, or sorrow. They had gone to be with God. The next morning, the snow still blanketed the ground, but the sun rose bright and clear in the pale blue sky. People came out cheerful into the crisp morning air. In a corner, they found a little girl with rosy cheeks and a gentle smile on her lips. She had died from the cold on New Year's Eve. She had left this world, but in her final dream, she found happiness with her grandmother. If you enjoyed this story, please click the button below to subscribe and give me more motivation to make more videos. Thank you, everyone.